Welcome back. In this video, I'm going to go over another part of the German special rules, and that is armored infantry. Basically, how you tell whether or not they get this mounted assault rule is when you're building your force, you look and see if it says mounted assault transport. So I'm looking in the Blood, Guts, and Glory book at this FH Panzersturm company. I don't know German, so this company. And if we look over here at our HQ and our infantry choices, in HQ it says may use the mounted assault special rule. So it tells you right there, and this platoon also may use the mounted assault special rule. So that's how you tell whether or not they get to use it or not. If we look at these guys, they don't have that. So they will not get to use the mounted assault special rule. So that's how you find out whether or not they have that rule or not. So what does this mounted assault rule give Germany? Well, first of all, Germany can use them as normal transports, just like anybody else. So these infantry will get on and these guys will move, and I've gone over transports already, so I'm not going to go over that again. So they could just be used as normal transports. But they also have some really nice special rules because there is a dedicated crew to this with the gun and driver and stuff like that they explain in the book. And one of the things is that when you dismount your people from their transport, the transport normally gets sent to the rear. However, they can keep the transport on the table, and that means some extra gun shooting. So that's a nice little bonus there. Like if USA got out of their half tracks would be sent to the rear. Germany, no, I can keep the half tracks if they have that special rule, that mounted assault. Then those half tracks can stay on the table and move with the infantry and maybe even cover, give them a little more machine gun, a little more firepower. So that's really a nice little bonus there with these half tracks. And again, as the German player, you can decide whether or not you want to keep them on the table or like, you know what, I do want to take them off when they dismount. Or, you can send them to the rear. So you have the choice. It's not that they have to stay on the table or they have to come off. It's your choice. Now, if this transport is carrying at least one infantry or whatever they normally carry, then this is considered basically a tank and no longer a transport for Germany. But it still does follow some of the transport rules, which I'll get to in just a little bit. So it's basically, if it's carrying these around, it follows some of the tank rules, which I'll get to. Now, one of the things that could happen is that they're carrying these in there. So I'm going to put them down here. So they're carrying these passengers in there. And this tank, not tank, well, it's considered a tank, and we're going to have these out here also. So let's say this is a situation, and they're carrying the troops also. So they're carrying people also. And then the enemy shoots at these transports. And lo and behold, this one gets destroyed. And then they got to make their 5+ save. Oh, they made it. So they jump out. Well, since any of these are still considered a transport, if one of these becomes destroyed, or the situation could also be if they become bailed out. So it could be any combination. If they're one destroyed or more, or destroyed or bailed out, just like any other transport team, at the end of that step that they were bailed out or destroyed, you're going to have to take a motivation test for these guys. And we're going to say these guys are confident, so they need a 4+, and I rolled a 1. So what's going to happen is everybody's going to dismount, and they'll dismount under fire. So remember about that rule. And they are all sent to the rear. So there is ways that people can get rid of the German half-tracks for a little while. Is if you destroy them or bail out and they fail their motivation test, they're going to be sent to the rear and everybody dismounts under fire. Now let's say they make it, and oh, I made it. These guys cease being, they dismount, they mount back in, and it ceases being bailed out. Of course, the destroyed one stays destroyed. So that is one of those little tricky rules you're going to have to remember, though. Even though they're considered like tanks, they're still transports. As far as if one gets destroyed or bailed out, at the end of that step, they're going to have to take a motivation test to keep their transports on the table. Now, there is something also special that if it is carrying 2 or more teams as passengers, these guys also have what's called tank transports. And what basically tank transports do for them is when they go into melee, instead of getting 1 die for the vehicle, you're going to get another die for the men being in the vehicle. So you're going to roll 2 dice for them in the assault instead of just the normal 1 die. And these guys are just kind of riding around in there. Oh, also, let's put these guys back out here. So we've got and again, it has to have at least 2 teams in transfer. So if you have 1 team in there, this rule does not apply also, like the last one didn't. And that is, these guys not only give you the extra die in the assault, they can shoot their weapon out of this half-track, which most people can't. And no matter the rate of fire, it's going to be 1 die. And it's going to be the normal range of their weapon. And if their rate of fire is 1, and this does move, then they have to count themselves as moving, and that adds that 1 to the difficulty to hit the target. And if there's a weapon that, like a Panzerfaust, that if you move you can't shoot, so if they have Panzerfaust they want to shoot, if this moves, they cannot shoot it. So it's the same rule as if they were walking. It's just the vehicle's walking for them, if you want to think it that way. But no matter the rate of fire, it's always just 1 die. So just keep that in mind. Now, let's say they're going to be able to get the extra die. And these guys are in this vehicle. I just have them next to it, just kind of for explanation purposes. But these guys are in that vehicle, and they technically become pinned down. Well, they want to launch their assault against the Americans up here. So, you know, they didn't get their unpinned marker done. They want to still be able to launch the assault. And they're in this transport. Can they still launch that assault being pinned down? Yes. Because if they're in an armored half-track, they get to ignore that pin down. But if they're not, like say they're out here in the open, yeah, they have to follow that pin. They can't assault. But they're inside this armored half-track, they can ignore that pin down for this situation. Another situation might arise where this platoon, this red platoon, has gotten attached to the blue platoon. The blue platoon, it's hard to say, blue platoon has the mounted assault rule. They do not. But they join, you know, they got combat attached to this blue platoon. Do they also now get the mounted assault rule? No. The special, just like any special rule that says otherwise, cannot be given to other units, even if they're attached to that unit. So these guys do not get the mounted assault rule, but they still do. These out of the way. Now, let's say that I'm going to take this one out and this one. And this is a warrior. And he's in this transport. And then this transport gets destroyed. He rolls a save, gets a 3. Is he dead? No. Not technically yet. He's still going to get his 4+, I'm going to stay in the game warrior save. So if he gets a 4+, he's gone. So this warrior is dead. If it came 1 to 3, it's like a firepower test, a 4+ firepower test to kill this, and the opponent's going to roll that. If it's 1 to 3, he's still alive. 4 to 6, the warrior did get killed. Now, let's say I'm down to 1 warrior in this platoon, or not warrior, 1 infantry team in this platoon left. And it's mounted in this transport. And it's the Germans' turn, and they're going through the starting step here. And there's Czech sole surviving team. Well, he's mounted in his transport, is now considered like a tank team. Does the German player have to take a sole surviving infantry team check? Yes. Even though he's in this and it's like considered a tank in a way, he's still the only surviving infantry team left. So let's see what happens. He did 4+, 3 failed, both are out. That's done. That platoon is gone. If he makes it, and I did make it, he's still in there. But next turn, a German player, when he gets back to his starting step, he's going to have to do that check again. Now, I'm going to put these out here, and these do have 2. They're carrying 2 each. Okay, but I'm not going to put these out here. I'm just going to have this be out here. So they're carrying 2, so they're able to conduct that that assault where they're going to get the extra dice. So we got these guys out here, and there's a few bazookas, we'll say, and so forth. And these half-tracks are wanting to assault here. Whether or not they're pinned down, they're going to be able to assault because they're armored vehicles. So they basically charge into contact. And the Americans here get their defensive fire. Well, the rifles aren't going to do anything for the most part. So, but the bazookas might. Well, the rifles could do something. I almost forgot. Because they're open-topped vehicles, you can think of them as tanks. So if 2 of them, at least 2, get bailed out and or destroyed, any combination, just 2 of them, this one's going to have to back out. The assault's not going to happen because they're open-topped armored vehicles. Fully armored vehicles, it's the same situation. Now, where the twist comes a little bit is because they're open-topped, it's just like infantry. It would be as if infantry was coming in to charge. And how do the Americans prevent this assault from happening when they charged in? Getting 5 or more hits on the Germans. So let's say the Americans are not pinned down and they're each going to get 1 die. And these guys are trained, so the Americans are going to need 3s. So let's see if they can get enough 3s. Miss, miss, miss. So they hit 4 times. Not enough to pin them. If they got 5, they would have to go back. Well, it's the same for these. Because they're open-topped, If they take 5 or more hits, they're also going to fall back. So it's a combo deal for for these open top. It's got either, or it could be a combination, either bailed out or destroyed, 2 of them at least, or 5 or more hits, they're going to have to drop back. So now they're going to come in again, and this one gets destroyed. Well, we're going to say that they had these 2 guys in it. They're going to have to take their check as usual. So these guys, again, let me clarify. They're coming in for the assault. Defensive fire came in. The Americans destroyed this one half track. They're going to have to get out of that half track. They're going to have to do their 5+ save. He gets a 6, and he gets a 2. So this one's killed. As usual, for destroying a transport with people in it. What they have to do is they have to go back at least 2 inches from the assaulting or from who they were assaulting. And they do not become pinned down unless they took 5 or more hits. And if they can't be placed, 2 inches away from them, then they are also destroyed. So there has to be room for them 2 inches away, and there has to be room for them to go down. If not, they're also destroyed. So that's if they're going in, charging in, defensive fire happens, and this is destroyed. They made their save. They have to go back 2 inches. So now we're into the assault. So they're going to get 2 dice. Take these up. They're going to get 2 dice because they are carrying at least 2 infantry teams or 2 teams in there. So they're going to get the extra die from them. So these guys are trained, so they need 4s. 1 dies there, and over here, 1 dies. And the Americans roll their counterattack. Oh, let's pretend they did. So they're coming in. Now they're going to get their attacks, and this one's going to swing over here. So now the Americans are going to attack, and they're trained also, so they're going to need 4s. So there's that. These guys, 1 hit. And we'll basically say this one got destroyed. It got blown up in the assault. Didn't make its armor save. It was carrying these 2 passengers. Well, because they were in the midst of the assault here in the vehicle, when this vehicle is destroyed in an assault, they are also destroyed. It's like that tank riders deal when they're riding a tank into the assault and the tank gets destroyed in the assault. They don't get any save. They do get a save when they're moving in to the assault, but once they're in the assault and that vehicle is destroyed, they are also destroyed. Now let's go back for just a minute here. And let's say everything's fine here. Germans, they're going to try to counter assault. Oh, they made it. So they're going to do counter assault. Now the German player has a choice here. Does he want to keep the men in there, have the extra dice? Or does he want to dismount the men? If they decide to dismount, their vehicle is sent to the rear. So that is kind of a nice deal that, ooh, you know what? What if you have 3 or 4 men in here? The transport got them in because it can take the hits. And then once they're doing the counter assault, if this vehicle survives, what if they have all those guys in there? Now you're getting like 4 dice into the assault. And then later you can bring this back and get them back into it. So you do have the option of when you're counter assaulting, do you want to keep the men in the transport, or do you want them to jump out of the transport and they get to move the normal counter assault movement of 4 inches, and then this vehicle is sent to the rear. Another option they have is, I'm going to bring this back, is let's say they decide, you know what, we've done enough damage here. Roll for counter assault. Didn't make it. There we go. They made it. Just like tanks, these Stugs, if they voluntarily break off, they got a choice. Do they want to back up, or do they want to go on through who they're assaulting? You know, I've gone over that break off through enemy rule. I've already gone over that. So just like this tank could do it, they could also, if they succeed at that counter-assaulting rule, they can go, we're going to break off through and continue on. If they fail, they have to break off back as usual. They don't get to do that breakthrough. And I've already talked about it in a previous video about that breakthrough, the enemy rule that tanks get. Now, the stipulation also is that the entire platoon is mounted. So if I have some infantry out here from this platoon, I can't do that. I cannot do that breakthrough the enemy rule. So everybody in that platoon has to be mounted and have that mounted assault rule. So now the assault's over. Oh, the Americans lost. You know, and then you consolidate as usual. However, this one is bailed out. What happens in this situation? Well, it really depends. Did they have passengers or not? If they have passengers, it's no longer bailed out. They can continue on. If they did not have passengers and it's bailed out, it's sent to the rear and it's no longer bailed out. So really, that's all I've got for the armored infantry special rule for Germany. And it's a really nice rule that gives some really good versatility to their half-track transports. And my next video will be over the Tiger A skill, some special rules with their tanks, and go over some artillery rules for Germany. And I should be done with the German special rules on that one. So, until next time, have a good game.